Alright, in this video, we're going to be working on an Excel column sheet, column number increase, so get into it. The problem statement is, given a string that represents the column in an Excel sheet, return its corresponding column number. Now, the way how that works is I got four examples here, and the way that it's been given is that when A is going to equal 1, B is going to equal 2. Now, that's only working with one column. The moment you hit to a second column and n amount of columns, we're going to be going ahead and moving it from, say, A equals 1, but then B, because we're on the second column, that means that we're going to be doing 26 plus B, which is going to be 2. So for every column, the explanation is a little weird, but when I get into the math, it might make a little bit more sense. And that's the understanding that for every, we're going to be working with base 26. So right off the bat, we're going to be dealing with. All right, so to kind of jump to it in the understanding portion. So understanding is the thing is that in terms of what I'm going to be inputting and outputting. So in the description, I will be given a string to input and I will be outputting a number, given a string, and then return its corresponding column number. So putting in string and output, which is be an integer, so an integer. In terms of so that's all we need for the understanding portion. It's just that we understand that we're going to get a letter and output a number. For the matching portion, it's weird because off the top of my head, I don't really have any on the back of my head that I could say, oh, this is similar to this. It's maybe the way that I'm going to show you the little formula portion that I want to say it's essentially the matching is you're taking an existing value and you're constantly changing through this loop that I'm going to show you. So I don't really have any previous projects. The only one that I know that really works like this is this exact one. So I'm going to leave this one as in blank right now because I don't think I have any stable knowledge for it. So getting to it, of course, the plan. The planning portion is going to be fairly simple on this. This is how I'm going to be running it. So first things first is I'll first be taking an input of a string. So let's say, let's call it column input. So we're going to have a column input is what I'm going to need to do. Then I'm going to have to declare a variable. So this is actually going to be our result. And we're going to have to set that equal to 0. And the reason we have it at 0 is because before the program even starts, the main thing that we're going to have is essentially going to be, no, it's nothing. Nothing has been inputted from the very beginning yet. The code hasn't ran through any math yet, so we're still stuck at 0 for this one. The next thing we're going to be doing is creating a for loop. So let's see here. So for loop, each input. So for loop input, and this is the individual input itself that we're going to be doing. Let's see. So my input, and inside that, let me go ahead and tab a little bit. So this is how we're going to be setting. We first need to have, so result will be based on, the result will be based on the row it's in, or the column, excuse me. So this means that whenever we get our letter, let's say A. So whenever A, we have to turn that into a number. So I have to turn that to a number for 1. The way we're going to be doing that is I'm going to be using Python for this. So there's a feature in Python where our function, I can't say I remember what it's called. It's not a function. I think it's what's called a method. I think method is actually the name I'm looking for. So there's a method. We're going to be using a method. And that's going to be this thing called ORD. Now, ORD in Python, what it does is it takes the letter and it takes the ASCII number. So, for example, A in the ASCII, it's going to be 5. It's going to be 65. And that's the lowest that we're going to get as terms of an ASCII number. In terms of the capital letter, because what we're going to be getting are just capital letters from A to Z. So from 65 being the lowest number, we have to get that down to 1. So simple math that we're going to be doing is, I'm actually going to go ahead and declare a second one where I'm going to call it a value. So this value, integer value, let's see, integer value. That is going to be set to the ORD number. So let's say A, for example, to stick with A. And that's going to be minus. So if we're going to get from 65 to 1, we have to do 65 minus 4. So this means we get our ORD value minus 64. That way we can get whatever our inputted letter is into base 64 base 26. So at base 26, that's the goal for this first part. All right. So now, of course, now that we have base 26, what do we have next to do? So this is where this is where the result portion starts to get real important. Excuse me. So on our next part, what we need to do is take our result, and this is where we start to change its value. So result is going to equal result, of course. Now, what's the special about the result? Result is equal to 0. This means that we are at column 0 when we start, because this is going to be our first input. So what we have to do is we have to times 26, because we are working with base 26. And when we base 26, that means that, like, looking above AB, kind of looking at this example up here, the first letter is going to be A, and it's going to equal 1, meaning that it's not going to be 26 plus, well, that's actually, I'm going to finish this one, plus 20, or plus the value. So value, let's say in this example, is going to be 1 plus, and then whatever its result times 26. And I'll show you how that makes sense. So yeah, so for example, A is going to equal 1. We only have one column, so it's going to output A. And then if we put in, say, AB, for example, so starting again, let's actually have it as AB. Let's say our input is AB. AB. So A is going to equal 1. So this means that while result is going to be equal 0, result is going to equal, it's still going to equal 0, and I'll change it as we go. So I'm going to try marking it. So A is in, so that's going to equal 1. Value equals 1. That's going to go here, where I have it underlined. Now let's go through the math. Result, which equals 0, times 26 is 0. We add that plus 1. So that's going to actually, so now our result's going to change to 1. Now, cool, result's going to equal 1. We're ignoring this part up here because it's been changed. So that part's going to, so we ignore this part right here. Let me actually, I'm going to put 2 hashtag marks there. So I want you to ignore that now. We're on our for loop. This is going to change. So result is now equal to 1. We're going to loop again. Now our second letter is B. Let's go B right here. B is going to equal, so 66 minus 64 is going to equal 2. Value now equals 2. All right, let's keep that in mind. Value equals 2. So let's go through the formula again. So result now equals 1, 26 plus, what was our value? Our value was 2, 26, 27, 28. This means our result equals 28. So that's how the plan is supposed to go. It's that thing where you kind of have to play with it. It took me a while to understand it, but this is the way to work through it. So let's take our implementation. Let's see. How am I going to do this? So let's do, again, I'm going to write this in Python. So I'm going to call my input INP, input, or input. That's going to be, I want to have it set to string. I'm going to encapsulate its string, input. And I need little parentheses in there too. So this is going to take our input of the string we're going to get. We then are going to get our result, and we're going to set that to an integer of 0. All right. Now, I'm going to still stick with the example of, say, AB, just because that one makes it's probably the least confusing bit of it. And let's see. Let's go ahead and go through it. So INP string. Now, what's our plan next that we're going to do? We're going to do a for loop of the input. Awesome. So I'm going to say for I. I'm going to have lowercase I be my temper, my exclusive variable for this loop. For I in INP. INP being whatever letters are going to be. Example, AB is my input. This means that I'm going to go through A one time, and then when the whole loop is done, B for the second set. So 1, 2, 3. All right. Now, first things first, I'm going to have to declare my int, or declare my integer value. That's going to equal to, again, so the way I'm going to get my value is I'm going to take my ord method, and I'm going to have that set to I. I. And of course, that's going to turn into the ASCII value. So 64. So this is where we're going to start off with it. And again, with don't believe me, you can use a calculator kind of follow through on it. But for sure, the ASCII portion is always going to equal. You could always just jump straight to it above with A equals 1, B equals 2. So you don't have to do the ASCII part. You could skip it if you're using a calculator for proof. Let's see here. So value, and then my next portion is, of course, now I have to change the results to equal result. And then we're going to do times 26 times 26. All right, 26 is there. So that's going to be my my base 26 for the alphabet. And then we're going to add that with value. And then it does say to return it. I know I didn't set it up as a function, so I'm just going to say return anyways. Return result. Actually, keep it accurate, like it'll hopefully work. Print results. So this print, you're going to write the print outside the for loop, because after the for loop's done, it's going to do the math and spit out the result. And that's essentially going to be the implementation portion of it. Excuse me. Implementation portion of it. So this line of code right here is actually going to be what we're going to be putting into our IDE. It will work. It will excel through it. The planning above it's just translated down there. So I'm looking at this now. I'm going to jump to reviewing of it. In truth, I feel like I can only save one line of code. So let me just go ahead and just copy this portion. Actually, where I see it is, for example, I don't have I don't see. If you want to save one line of code, you could always just put this portion right here. And let me actually just copy it so I can show you what I mean. So this right here, copy, and paste it right here. May as well get this one just to prove where I'm getting at. So this portion of the code within the loop, the only thing that I could see when it comes to reviewing what can I do better in it, I can always cut one extra variable and one little tiny bit of memory and just replace it with this right here. Copy here. Now, of course, because PEMDAS is going to work from left to right, not only that, it's going to first jump to the multiplication. It's going to be adding, well, you know what? Just for safety, just because I do get a little paranoid on it, let's do that. It's still going to be adding this portion right here. Like, it's still basically doing its own, like, it's like doing the value. It's just on one line of code. Where in parentheses, since that's what we're going to focus on first, I'm going to take the order of the number. This is, I guess it's less readable, but it saves you a line of code. And that's essentially how I would fix the code above in terms of review. So this is my umpire video for it. I'm going to review it real quick with you. Starting with the understand portion, we took an input of a string, output of a number, matching. In terms of what would be a string and a number, I guess I still can't think of anything off the top of my head, so I'm still going to leave that blank for right now. For the column input, for the planning, I have to. For the planning, I just need to take in the input of a number, loop through each of the letters of that string. Oh yeah, sorry. I'm taking input of a string, and in each letter of that string, I'm looping through it. And then I'm going to start turning each of them into ASCII. And that ASCII, I'm going to subtract that number, the lowest number being 65, turn that into a usable number on base 26, and multiply that by 26 plus the value, which is what was the original ASCII portion, and then loop through that. And that's what I did in the coding portion. And in my review, I would probably just change that up, but I didn't update this one right here. It's just so it's a little bit more visual. All right, that is my video for this. Thank you.